held a doctoral degree in viruses during a virus-driven global calamity. Coincidence? This year, David returns as our mayor, once again with some impressive new credentials. And that is, he is president of the National League of Cities, an organization of more than 2,700 cities across our nation. And in this very important position, and for this next year, not only will David be leader of Rancho Cordova, but also of an organization that supports millions and millions of our fellow Americans from sea to shining sea. David is bringing this all together this year as he travels our country talking about cities being laboratories of democracy, thus the jacket, and a fact you proved so well at your tables, and he will be talking about it today. It is a year for David and the city of Rancho Cordova to shine. In his role, David is sure to meet some fascinating people. He shared with me that a couple weeks ago, he was at a session where he gave a speech, and the speaker who followed him was Vladimir Zelensky, president of Ukraine. How about that for company? Now that company is almost as important as the people in this room. So with all of that, it is my pleasure to welcome the president of the Cordova Community Council, the president of the National League of Cities, and the mayor of Rancho Cordova, Dr. David Sander.
Thank you for that, Shelley. That was, it is unprecedented in my experience. And I do have to warn you, if my calculations are correct, those concoctions sitting on the table are going to be stable for about 30 minutes. So if I, as I tend to do, go over a little bit, there will be a little bit of risk in the room, but it's okay. It might be messy, but no one will really get hurt, at least not much. All right, well, I am so thrilled to be here, in part because I think the last time I got to do one of these was during the pandemic. And all of you were jammed into this little screen, or this little window on my screen. And it's much better this way, isn't it? Much better this way. So look, as you know, this is a really exciting time for Rancho Cordova. And so this afternoon, I'm going to talk about not only what is going on in Rancho Cordova, as we traditionally do in this January speech, but I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about that other job that I now have with the National League of Cities. So Rancho Cordova just last year celebrated 20 years of incorporation. Can you guys believe it? 20 years has gone by awfully quickly in my lifetime as one of the original council members, and I know Linda is my colleague on the city council, one of the originals, and many other people here in this room who made that happen. But we have accomplished so much in 20 years. I want to recap a little bit of that. We've grown by 47% in terms of population in 20 years. We had 20,000 households in 2003. We have 31,000 households today. Our population was 55,000, now it's 81,000. We are both a place to call home and a place to work. Our business park surrounding us here and the jobs that are in Rancho Cordova are one of the largest concentration of jobs in Northern California. And we continue to add more and more companies to that base, making us the most concentrated center for private sector jobs in the northern part of the state. We are home to great companies like Solidyne, who just moved in across the street last year, and is probably the largest corporate relocation to the Sacramento region and the most impactful one since Intel came here back in the 1980s or 90s, whenever that happened. This is a big deal. We are already home to VSP, and we just added a great company like Clutch, which we can just about see from this room. We are hot as a business location, and that trend is going to continue. So we've been very successful there. We've also been successful taking advantage of our natural advantages, like the American River Parkway. We have over 6 miles of the American River Parkway. Probably the most beautiful part of the American River Parkway is right here in Rancho Cordova, accessible to most of our homes, easily accessible. And we have now, due to city efforts, more than 25 miles of bike and pedestrian trails that will lead us into that parkway and get us around our community. And we've done these sorts of things, grow, add jobs, add connectivity, without losing our financial stability. As a matter of fact, in this region, we are, without a doubt, the most financially stable and successful city. And that is no small accomplishment, given what we've gone through. Think about the recession, the housing bust, the pandemic. Through all of these things, Rancho Cordova has maintained some of the largest reserves in terms of finances, and we've seen our bottom line grow the most. Every single year we have a surplus. Every single year we're able to reinvest in things in this community that other communities around us can't, because we are that careful with how we spend dollars. Our community enhancement and investments that all of you voted on, that's that little extra tax, allow us to do so many things in our community that our neighbors are now trying to copy. They're trying to copy it in Folsom and in Citrus Heights and in Oak Grove. I don't think any of them have been truly successful yet. We're still leading the way with those innovations and those awesome extras that we can do in our community, but we are a leader in that as well. We've also experienced the growth of hundreds of new businesses, and that is unprecedented in the region, and multiple new neighborhoods being built. And we did all this while probably pursuing the most important thing, which is public safety. So I can tell you now, the raw statistics would say that crime is down between 2011 and now. Crime involving people, like harm to an individual, is down 11% since 2011. Actually, I'm a little embarrassed of that number. It should be more. But something happened in between called a pandemic. Our crime was down 50% in that same time period up until the pandemic. The pandemic happened, and just like the rest of the country, crime went up in our community. But I'm happy to tell you today it's headed down. And if you look at the long term, even over that long term, we are still down 11%. And we do so many unique things here in Rancho Cordova. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later with regard to public safety. So as you already know this year, not only am I serving as your mayor, I think for the 5th time, is that right? No? 5-time mayor? I think that's right. But I'm also serving as president of the National League of Cities. Now the National League of Cities, as you heard, represents every city, village, town in the United States. It's 19,000 of those cities, towns, and villages that the organization represents. We represent them in Washington. You can think of us as like a lobbying organization. We represent them internationally with regard to trying to network with cities around the world and find solutions for our cities that may be found in the East or in the West. We also educate our members, and we create opportunities for collaboration. And serving as their president this year, all of those benefits are going to come probably in triplicate to Rancho Cordova. So this is a year of enormous opportunity for us with me holding this particular role. Thank you. So I need to talk to you a little bit about what I have been telling people, like the National League of Cities. You saw me on a stage there in one of those images. I'm talking about cities operating as laboratories of democracy, and I think that probably confuses a lot of people who wonder, what are you talking about? You know, I remember science lab in high school. That was scary, you know, or I didn't like it, or it was hard. But in reality, all of us experiment. I mean, anyone who cooks experiments, right? What happens if I add this? Well, you know, could be good, could be bad. What car should I buy? You know, what happens if I drive this route versus that? We all experiment. If you're a gardener, you're constantly experimenting. We as city leaders, every city leader, every organizational leader, in some way, experiments. So I like to use Rancho Cordova as an example in this. When we first formed as a city on that election night, and many people in this room were there, in that room at our headquarters on election night back in 2002, there were 5 council members elected in the photo in the middle, and there was no city. There was no city staff, There was no city property, there was no city employees, no bureaucracy, nothing. We had a name, we had 53,000 people, but we did not have anything like a city. So what did we have to do? We basically had to experiment and innovate and figure out how do we set up a modern city to take care of these residents in Rancho Cordova. And we were unburdened with the idea of a bureaucracy that said, oh, you can only do things this way. We could do things however it was most efficient and effective. And that is the course we have pursued for 20 years. But that means a lot of experimentation. We had to take on things like, probably the biggest problem was the declining neighborhoods in Rancho Cordova, the sense that we had been something greater than we were at that time. And I remember our mayor at the time, Dave Roberts, who was elected that first city council, he was a champion for incorporation here in Rancho Cordova, and he said, our future is greater than our past. Very simple statement, but I think that captured all of our hopes for what Rancho Cordova was going to be. And to do that, we had to experiment and find out the best way to do things. We had problems that had been neglected for decades in our community. Cars weren't being towed, houses weren't being maintained, empty businesses were not being replaced. Endless series of problems in our community. And so we had to take those on. And so what we've done since then is 20 years of building institutions in our community from the ground up. We've spent 20 years testing strategies, 20 years finding new ways to govern, 20 years of experimenting to create a better community. And as a scientist, and many of you now know that I'm a virologist, this is just acting like a big laboratory. Trying out things, seeing what works, reinforcing them, learning, doing it again, doing it better. The fundamental reason that all cities exist in the first place is frankly the result of a big experiment. Think about that. Why do we have cities? We have cities because thousands of years ago, someone, probably two families, decided to live close to each other and determined, you know what, we're better off when we do that than opposed to living separately. And then more people joined, and more families joined, and it went from 10 to 100 to 1,000 to tens of thousands to millions that we now see living in cities. This is all one big experiment. The hypothesis that they had, if we lived together, would we be better off, was correct. They tested it and it worked. And we have reiterated that for thousands of years since and in millions of examples. So in a way, our cities really are our laboratories of democracy. And as I talk about it this year, I'm also breaking it down into three big pillars, which you may recognize from our work here in Rancho Cordova. First is the pillar of partnership. We believe that partnership is key to testing and operating these laboratories of democracy, otherwise known as cities. The second is a sense of service. You have to have a culture of service to your neighbors, to your community, to your organization in order to be successful in these laboratories of democracies. And third, innovation. That's what the whole laboratory idea is all about to begin with. You have to innovate, you have to try new things, you have to take a little risk. You gotta get the reward of the risk by finding out what works and then amplifying it. You do the experiments, you innovate. So it's partnerships, service, and innovation. Those are the things I'm going almost now around the world talking about. And the examples I use are from right here in Rancho Cordova. And I'll give you some examples of that. When I talk about partners and the importance of partners, we're not talking about the traditional way that cities or governments look at their residents. Because usually what often happens is a city leader would say, oh, they're like our customer. Our residents are like a customer. I think that's fundamentally untrue. Because you can't choose somewhere else to go pay your sewer bill or your water bill or to get a permit to remodel your house. You don't have a choice. We're the only one. The relationship is not provider-customer. The relationship is partners. Residents hire government. They hire city people. They elect people to lead so that we can be partners in making this place do things that benefit all of us. We're not in charge. You're not in charge. We're in charge. We are partners in this. And that's how we have tried to govern Rancho Cordova. And that's the ideal of a democratic style laboratory. We're all involved in the experiments, as you just demonstrated at your tables today, and I don't want to let those run too long. So that partnership idea frankly shocks some people. But there's a lot of examples in Rancho Cordova where we've done that. And I'm going to touch on some when I get to innovation. The second is service. I'm not going to spend much time on this because frankly, we in the room probably all know what this is. You are already community leaders if you're in this room. You're probably involved in some community organization. Maybe it's your kid's school, maybe it's your church, maybe at some other nonprofit, or maybe in your work. We're all engaged in service. And we in Rancho Cordova have something special. And frankly, I don't know if it's from the Air Force and the legacy of the Air Force in terms of a can-do attitude, and we're all in this together, or if it's a residue of Aerojet, that massive employer from our history, with 23,000 people who worked here in Rancho Cordova, and the space race sort of pressure they were under during the Cold War. Something in our cultural DNA here in this community is special. And when people come and visit Rancho Cordova, that's what they always say. You have something special there with regard to your commitment to community, and they don't know what it is. But it's service. We all get that. I have to spend more time explaining that to other audiences. And the third point is innovation. Now, I've mentioned some of those. I can mention more. The Cordova Community Council is a remarkable example of partnership and innovation in the way the city of Rancho Cordova and we all do business. Most cities do not have an organization like that. An organization that puts on events instead of city staff doing it. An organization that brings together nonprofits to do things they can't do on their own. To let people express their passions and pursue them. So the city ends up acting like a broker, a catalyst, and a facilitator. Actually, those are also chemical terms, which is pretty interesting. Still watching the clock. But we do that through the Cordova Community Council. There are virtually no examples of that I have found. True examples of that I have found elsewhere in the country. But every time I explain it to my fellow leaders at the National League of Cities, everybody wants it. Everybody wants a Cordova Community Council. So that's a great example, but I'll give you a more specific one. We've done stuff with sports and the arts and history. We've done stuff with the faith community. In that partnership sense, allowing them to innovate with the city acting in a supporting role, not a doer. But just think about what has happened with the arts. This is Cheryl's happy. Just think about what's happened with the arts. I don't know, is Rick Sloan in the room? Rick Sloan was part of a group of artists, probably 13, 15 years ago, who came to the city and said, hey, let's form an arts council. We can have monthly meetings and staff can be assigned to it, and we can publish agendas and come to conclusions, and the city can fund projects. And the city council said, we're not gonna do it that way. Everybody else says it that way. We're not doing it that way. We're sending you to the Cordova Community Council. And they will help you figure out what you can do as a group. And then when you find a problem that you need to overcome, the city will help. So we did that. And I'm gonna cut this short. You fast forward to now, what did that change of strategy yield? We still don't have an arts commission as a city, but it doesn't matter. We now have the MAC, an entire building we've remodeled for the arts. We have constant and ongoing art shows to the extent that we've hosted a Smithsonian exhibition here in Rancho Cordova. We have a documentary film festival that happens every year in our community. We have documentaries we are producing every year. We have children's art happening in all of our schools. We've got 2 theater companies that have formed and are supported here in Rancho Cordova. We've got a poetry contest. We have a poet laureate. All of these things have happened. We have a community band. We have a symphony, for crying out loud, in Rancho Cordova. No government planned that. We never planned that. The Arts Commission that we don't have, they could never have planned that. Who did that? Our residents did that. How did they do it? We just allowed them to innovate. The city just provided funding, knocked down barriers, facilities, whatever it was, allow the residents to pursue their passions and innovate. That's the power of innovation. And we have lived it. And part of my job as NLC president is to spread that idea. So I also have to add at this point, when you undergo innovation, there's always a risk because you're trying something. And I always say in my January speech, you better hope we screw up this year as a city. You know why? If we don't screw up, we're not trying. There is never a gain without a risk. And as your city leaders, as your partners in this, you better hope that we get across the line somewhere and stub our toe. Because otherwise we don't know where the line is, and if we don't know where the line is, we're not performing very well for you. So while we're facilitating all this stuff, occasionally you'll probably see something go wrong. Now the funny part is, my city staff in the back will be like, yes, you're giving us cover to innovate. But come November, when I give these, the annual like State of the City address, I'll be asking them, so where did we screw up this year? And it'll be crickets, right? No one's gonna mention anything. See? No one will mention anything. The only thing they'll come up with was, you remember, Mayor, when you were talking in January and all the tables suddenly blew up? That's probably what we'll all be witness to. So there's the risk. There's the risk right there. Okay, I'm going to move on to some great stuff that is happening here in Rancho Cordova this year in 2024. On the public safety front, we have a really strong partnership with the Sheriff's Office, and our city officers are the cream of the crop. Because if you're a Sheriff's Officer and you want to work in Rancho Cordova, you have to join a waiting list of a couple of hundred people and hope that you get picked off that list, which means that we get officers in Rancho Cordova who want to be here, and they want to be here because we do things, I don't want to say better, I'll just say different and with more innovation than they may find elsewhere within the department. We have special units for crime suppression, for homeless outreach, for problem-oriented policing, for our Folsom Olson Zinfandel area. We have a great PAL program going on with our kids. This is all remarkable public safety. We're also building a real-time information center, and we are building out more, how should I say it? Cameras at our intersections that sort of point in all directions and can pick up license plate numbers in some cases, and are helping us solve some of those stupid property crimes that have sort of erupted all around the country, frankly. We're deploying technology to get on that. And another way you can help as a partner is to join Neighborhood Watch. We always have room for that, lots of opportunities. Check the Rancho Cordova Police Department website for what you can do with Neighborhood Watch. And speaking of public safety, we have this great program here, nationally award-winning, called Growing Strong Neighborhoods. It basically involves every city employee in making sure that our neighborhoods are healthy, growing, and headed the right direction. Our goal is to help all of our residents come into compliance, all of our property owners uplift their properties, see more value. In doing that, we'll have less crime, we'll have healthier schools, we'll have higher quality of life, and a happier community. So we are a national leader in how to do that. It's sort of led in a way by code enforcement, but it really involves everybody who works here at City Hall and all of our residents in that partnership for Growing Strong Neighborhoods. And then I mentioned briefly the Community Enhancement Investment Funds. We have done so much in this area. I didn't even come up with the number of dollars we have employed, but you can think about arts, culture, history, and entertainment all over our city that's being deployed because of those funds. Other jurisdictions don't have this. The business and economic development things that we're able to do, the children and youth programs, the civic engagement of getting our neighborhoods together and having dollars to facilitate that, the increase in community pride, the education programs, the quality of life, the public safety, and the huge impact we have had on youth sports, among other things. This is a partnership that the city has done with you, the voters, with a lot of nonprofit organizations and other community members. We have funded hundreds of projects at that point. I've already mentioned some of the big ones. The MAC is a great example. That's a result of those funds from Measure H and Measure R. You can also see enhancements to our schools. I don't know how many of you heard about the new weight room at Cordova High. There's an image of it there on the left. That benefits every student who goes to that high school because they all have PE, they all use that equipment. It also benefits our sports teams and community sports teams who have access to that facility. So it is gonna have a lot of impact. You may have heard about our Youth at City Council initiative, our Youth at City Hall. It's a youth program where we take kids through the wonders of being a city council member in the city of Rancho Cordova. And then we ask them to vote on something like, should chickens be legal or illegal? Tough decisions like that they've got to go through. You may have heard about our literacy programs that are putting books in the hands of kids, our arts programs that are reaching virtually every kid in every school, our mentorship programs in school, our field trips that are allowing field trips for kids who otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity. All this is possible because of Measure H and Measure R, and because of your support of those initiatives and your creativity in helping us find ways to help our community. I've also mentioned the documentaries that we've had. I don't know how many of you know, did you mention it was nominated for an Emmy? Yes, so it was From the Gold Rush to the Space Race. Stand up. Stand up. Nominated for an Emmy. And it's a nice summary of the history of Rancho Cordova. All right, I need to move on to infrastructure because the clock is ticking. You know, last year we spent over $25 million on infrastructure projects. That is a big number for a city of our size. You may have noticed Mayfield Road got repaved. We actually repaved more than 16 miles, lane miles of road last year. We created over 2 new miles of sidewalk and new sidewalk and repaired sidewalk. And over the last calendar year, this is an even bigger number, we got $35 million in grants to help us support future transportation projects. And the reason we get those grants is, once again, Measure R, that helps us have a bigger match, makes us more competitive. We bring yet more money into the city. It's great leverage. The Zinfandel overcrossing, now this is the image you may not recognize, so the large one on the bottom there. That's going to be a crossing parallel to Zinfandel crossing Highway 50 that will be iconic, beautiful. It'll probably be a destination for people to go look at. We're hoping that it will light up in artistic ways at night, right, Albert? We will figure out how much Caltrans will allow us to do, and then we'll go one step further and ask for forgiveness. There aren't any Caltrans officials in the room, right? All right, we're good. That's innovation, though, right there, right? Push that boundary. Maybe that's where we'll get in trouble. But that will be a beautiful addition to our community, and we sort of took a risk in preparing the application for that. Because in many, applications for projects are not free. You end up spending tens of thousands of dollars preparing them. You put them in, you hope you get the grant. We got that grant. And that grant's worth how much, Albert?
$25 million.
$25 million for that one project. And construction in September of 2025. I predict we are going to be known for that in a way, because people driving up and down Highway 50 are going to see that and remember, what on earth? Why did they get that beautiful crossing like that? It's like a work of art. Anyway, we are also going to finish the White Rock Road project, so it's going to extend all the way to our city limits, and we're going to do another phase on Sunrise. There is a lot of transportation coming, including a new bicycle connection along Chase Drive that connects us to the American River Parkway. That has been underway for a while, the planning for that. We've accumulated a bunch of grants to get it done. That's also going to happen this summer. Let's move on into community development. We have 6 big housing projects under development right now. Rio de Oro, The Ranch, Orissa del Sol, Grant Line 220, Montelena, and Sunridge Village. And we have additional projects coming along in Stone Creek, The Preserve, Chilocco West and Sun Creek, Westcott Station, otherwise known as Bradshaw Village, and Montelena Villages. We are also seeing some new multifamily housing as well as some senior retirement. Boy, has that been a hard thing to land. Some senior retirement housing in Stone Creek. Mills Crossing, our project at the intersection of Mayfield Road and Folsom Boulevard, is going to be in the design phase this year. And Mayfield Veterans Village, which is our housing for homeless veterans, we're going to fund phase 4 of that this year, and that will take us over 200 veterans housed at that facility. In economic development, we have had a lot of challenges. Our region has had a lot of challenges with the pandemic, and other jurisdictions have seen business loss. We have actually seen job gain since the pandemic, and a few of the reasons are UC Davis Health moved their headquarters basically across the street, more than 1,000 jobs. Solidyne the biggest win for the region, Sacramento region, in probably a generation, is now headquartered next door. And it's also exemplified by Clutch, the new business that we just announced a couple of weeks ago, that is not only a local employer, but will bring more employment as a result of their business right here to Rancho Cordova. And we have a whole bunch of new, smaller businesses coming, which we traditionally name at this. So, you should join me in welcoming Handel's Homemade Ice Cream. How great is that, right? The Epic Casino, Grocery Outlet, Happy Niyama, Keglo Aesthetics, Mather Modern Dentistry, New Pacific School, New York Pizza and Wings, and Vegan Fresh to You. All new businesses opening, or some of which are already open. We also have a few more in the pipeline that are coming. We have Cali Kebab and Hero House. We have Kids Empire, Pacific Dental, Pizza Twist, Roundtable Pizza, Sandu Pizza. What's with all the pizza?
Thank you.
West Coast Sourdough, World Traveler, Coffee Roasters, and more coming this year. And finally, or almost finally, we are making a big push in technology. I spoke at the Consumer Electronics Show a couple weeks ago, and people said, what makes a smart city? And I said, because so many people are trying to sell so many gizmos to cities and say, oh, if you buy this, you're a smart city. It's like a trendy thing to be a smart city. And I said, the only way to define that is not a bunch of shiny objects in your city, or, oh, look at that cool thing we have. That doesn't do it. What does it is when you're able to leverage new technology to benefit your residents. And when you can measure that, then you're a smart city. And so that's what we are set out to do. And we have some great representatives with Garrett Gatewood and Suri Kolopati, who have some technology knowledge on our city council. We're starting a new committee at the city to sort of oversee how we can get even closer to the leading edge and perform for our residents on that basis. So with that, I guess I should mention service one more time. We have an amazing spirit of volunteerism and dedication to service in this city that makes me so proud of who we are and so proud of all of you being here today. And I am thrilled to announce that we are going to do an event which we have planned, I think, since pre-pandemic, but are now able to fully commit to again. And that is a day of service. It's going to be the Rancho Cordova Spring Service Day. Going to take place on May 18th. We are looking for volunteers who are going to donate their time and talent to many, many projects all across the city. And this one, although other things you're hearing about are selling out, this one will not sell out. But just in case it does, register yourself and your organization early to participate.
Double pay if we register early?
There you go. Double compensation. Double compensation. So I need to close because I can see the fizz. I am so proud of what we have built here in Rancho Cordova. And we have a little video that's going to highlight some of those things that make us so great. Play the video.
We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Say you don't know me, I'll recognize my face. Say you don't care who goes to that kind of place. Kneeling in the hoopla, sinking in your fight. Too many runaways, eating up the night. What's calling you plays the mama? This is the radio.
experiments in innovation, our willingness to test new ideas and methods, our commitment to partnership, our commitment to service, I think are only a few things that make us great. A great example of a city and a laboratory of democracy. It has been my honor and is my honor to serve as your mayor this year and to serve as president of the National League of Cities, representing Rancho Cordova. And I, with all of you, I am looking forward to a wonderful 2024. Thank you very much.